Hey guys, Alec Peirce at the ranch with another interesting bit of information, stuff that I've learned as well. Now, we heat with propane. A few things anyway. We used to heat the pool with propane, and this is my garage right here. That's my propane tank for the garage because I keep the garage warm all year long. It never goes below 45 degrees, so things don't freeze on me and so on. And then recently, a couple of years ago anyway, we got a propane furnace too, much more efficient. Pretty cheap, got a good deal on it. So we heat with propane now, and wood, of course, as you know that. Now, one of these small issues I ran into even several years ago was knowing when this tank was getting empty. Now, you might say, well, there's a gauge in it, dummy. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. There is a gauge in a propane tank. This is what's called a 420 cubic feet, this particular tank, quite common. Now, there are the great big, long submarine tanks. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm sure they have some kind of a gauge on them too. This particular tip won't work with them. And then, of course, there's a small 10, 20, 30, 40 pound tanks that you use in RVs and so on. But this is very commonly the tank that's used for home heating and garages and pools and stuff like that. So you probably recognize this. So anyway, how much propane is in here? Now, you can actually put yourself on a regular monthly propane check, but we don't use that much, certainly the house, and so we didn't want that. We don't want people coming in anyway. So I want to know how much is in here. I want to know. I'm not depending on somebody else. So come over to it, pop the lid up. Yeah, that's good. You look inside, and there's a knob and the regulator, a couple other funny things. Hey, there's a gauge. Yeah, right there, there's a gauge. Now, I have discovered, to my chagrin, that these gauges are very, very cheap, and they don't work very well. If you're lucky to have a gauge that's working really well, great, but they don't. So I can look at this gauge, and basically it says full, empty, and it's got some numbers around there, 80%, 60%, 50, 40, 30, and so on. Percentage of propane in here. Now, you may or may not know that propane, you think it's a gas, right? Propane is a gas, like the stuff that burns, but it's actually a liquid. So they pump liquid propane into here, and it goes down and it fills this up like a gas tank, up to here. I don't know how high it goes, but let's say it goes to here. Liquid propane. And then above the liquid propane is gas, propane gas, because the liquid, even at room temperature, the liquid propane turns into a gas and sits on top. And that gas goes through the regulators, low pressure, through the regulator, then off to your furnace. So you're burning gas, but they actually fill us with liquid propane. In order to measure how much is in here, they don't go by pressure, because the pressure varies tremendously. Also, the pressure is very, very low, so it'd be hard to get a pressure gauge. Unlike a acetylene or an oxygen tank or a scuba tank, you can't really use a pressure gauge to see how much you have. So, because it's a liquid, they measure the amount of propane in these tanks the same as you do a gas tank in your car. They have a little float that sits on top of the water. And the float's connected by a lever to a little potentiometer. But in this case, it comes up and it just goes to a little lever, a little dial on a little plastic gauge. As the float goes down, that dial is supposed to change. And sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. So if you get down to about 10%, you can't be sure if it's completely empty or just low, or it could be at 70%. You say, hey, that's okay, and then you come back 2 days later and say 40. But what the heck happened? Well, those gauges aren't very good. They stick. The levers and the buttons and the plastic gauge, they don't work very well. So here's a couple of tips, things I've learned. Okay, this is not in the book, and the propane guy won't tell you this. In fact, I've actually told propane guys some of my experiences, and they said, no kidding. Hey, I didn't know that. Here's what you do. You come out, you want to see how much propane you have. You look at the gauge says 80%. First thing, do this. Give it a shake. Yeah, just a little bit. Don't hurt it. Give it a shake. But what that does, those vibrations, they make that float move a little bit, and then it settles down. But the vibrations go up through the little lever, and the little lever goes to the little plastic gauge, and everything settles down. Okay, then you take a look, 60%. It was stuck at 75%. A little shake, a little vibration, and now the gauge readjusts and now drops down to 60%. So you get so there's a tip right away. If you give it a little shake first, then if you have a gauge in there, which you probably do, it's going to be a lot more accurate. But you know there's a simpler way. There really is a simple way. This is a hollow tank. It's fairly light steel. These are not like, again, high pressure tanks. They're very thick. This is very light steel. Just like your propane tank for your barbecue. So, you know, if this was completely empty, gosh, I don't know, it might weigh 50 pounds. I don't know exactly. The tare weight's probably on here, but I'll bet you it's not, I bet you if it's 100 pounds, I'd be surprised. Okay? Point is that it's quite easy to move when it's empty. Yeah. So you come out to your propane tank, to heck with the gauge, or the gauge is not working, and take it like this, and go like this back. If you can actually tip this tank back and forth on the pad that's sitting on, actually tip it, I can't do it right now, it's almost empty. Because the propane is very heavy, tank is very light. Now right now, this is 75–80%. I try to tip this, and I can't tip it. It's very heavy. There's lots of propane. So really all you have to do is come out, oh, yeah, lots of propane, see it. Simplest way, and it works pretty well too. And then the guy comes in and he fills it with propane, and they charge by the, I think they charge by the pound. So he comes in, he puts in 200 or 300 pounds of propane, and then you get a bill a few days later. And if you come out just after he's filled it and you try to give it a shake, you're going to find it doesn't shake easily. Yeah, a simple little tip, maybe it'll be worthwhile for you. A guy just didn't even know about that, so it was interesting. Gauges don't work, give it a shake. You'll get an idea how much propane. That's the same as your barbecue. You know, when you take your empty 20-pound tank in, it weighs nothing. When he fills it, you got to carry it like this because it's 20 pounds heavier. It's the same idea, just bigger. I don't know, there's something in there for you. Maybe there is. Alec Peirce at the ranch. Talk to you soon. More tips coming.